He noticed that even if she agreed to move to Kyle, she still wouldn't be able to leave. Vanessa assured him it wasn't necessary. Nick noticed her hesitation and asked her to leave immediately if she still had doubts. But Vanessa knew it was too late to back down, especially since she couldn't leave Cody with his father. Confidently, she repeated that she was staying and wasn't going to leave this family. Mrs. Kenneth overheard and decided everyone needed to put on gloves and search for anything that might have survived. She asked if anyone objected, but no one dared to challenge her. Vanessa tore a thin strip of fabric from her dress and tied her hair up in a bun so it wouldn't interfere with her work. Entering the charred building again, Vanessa realized almost nothing had survived. In Cody's room, she noticed the burned duckling he loved. She found nothing else and went to check her own room, hoping some belongings remained. The first thing she found was her preserved laptop case, for which she was grateful to the academy. Opening it, the laptop seemed intact and should work, but there was no time to check. She now had only one set of uniforms and thought she needed to order more. Looking around, she felt she had gathered the most important things and was ready to leave. Still, she decided to check Mr. Paralan's room. Holding onto the wall carefully because the floorboards were badly burned with a huge hole, Vanessa made it across and noticed an iron safe that seemed undamaged. It struck her as strange that such an antiquity lay in a house full of new technology. Curious, Vanessa wondered what papers the Mafia might store in the safe. Whatever it was, they protected it well. Vanessa tried to open it, first with combinations based on Oscar's and Cody's birthdays, no luck. She tried Mr. Paralan's wife's birthday, still no success. Feeling a bit embarrassed, Anna entered the room, curious about what Vanessa was doing. Vanessa quickly explained she was checking if the safe had survived the fire. Anna said she would take care of it and knew the code because the boss had asked her to retrieve some things. Vanessa didn't want to disturb her and went to help on the first floor. As she left, Anna noticed something strange and familiar in Vanessa. Outside, Mr. Paralan asked Mrs. Kenneth what had been lost. She reported that almost everything was gone. Vanessa approached holding the charred duckling and expressed that they had lost someone else. Cody, seeing his favorite toy, immediately rushed to her, glad to hold it again. Then the boy became ashamed for being left in a burning house. Vanessa expressed regret but explained she first needed to save him. Cody knew that but didn't understand why others were suffering because of him. His father approached and promised they would hold a church service and find a new toy for him. Soon Nick and Anna reported they had salvaged everything possible from the house. Nick said the security system couldn't be restored, and it was impossible to review the previous night's footage. Anna added that all hard drives and electronics, even damaged ones, were destroyed. Vanessa realized they had destroyed all traces of illegal activity, but the most important things remained in the safe. The driver came up and reported all guests had been accommodated in a hotel for the night. Uncle Johnny decided to return home immediately. Nick asked what would happen to them. Oscar explained he had agreed on a long-term lease for several rooms in the Grand Hotel. Adam noticed there was a rooftop swimming pool, and from Cody's room window, he could see his favorite park. Vanessa, overhearing the conversation, was interested in the hotel stay but worried they might have to go to Albuquerque. Oscar assured them it would take more than a fire. Mr. Paralan admitted things had gone too far to turn back now. At that moment, Johnny was arriving home when his driver informed him of an incoming call. It was Simon, who politely asked how the event went. Don grinned slightly and added with irony that everything went with a twinkle. Johnny wondered if Simon had found the hacker Oscar had hired to breach their network. Simon believed Nick and Anna were unlikely candidates because they couldn't even pick a suitcase lock. The only unchecked employee was the nanny, who had started about a month ago. This intrigued the Don. Simon tried to dig up more information about her. While the mobsters minded their business, Oscar's family arrived at the Grand Central Hotel. They looked more like a horde of homeless people than serious mafiosi. The porter recognized Mr. Paralan and greeted him, offering services. Nick leaned over and explained his boss had a very hard night and would talk tomorrow. Anna came up to discuss accommodation terms with the porter. Meanwhile, Vanessa looked around the clean, simple hall. Behind her, Adam admired the chic surroundings, commenting they would live here for some time. They were distracted when Mrs. Kenneth handed out room key cards. She assigned Julia to maintain their rooms and handle laundry, as she didn't trust local staff. Adam's responsibilities remained unchanged, trying to get a comfortable parking spot. He wanted to sleep first. Mrs. Kenneth took Vanessa's card and explained the nanny wouldn't live separately but share the penthouse with Cody. Vanessa couldn't believe it. She never dreamed of living in a penthouse. She didn't know how to live in a hotel and worried about security. In the elevator, she reassured herself she'd be next to Cody, who had been through a lot. It wasn't about the lost belongings in the mansion but about the boy's safety, which had been taken from him just like his mother. Hoping Cody was still awake, Vanessa knocked on his door. Mr. Paralan opened it. She thought she had the wrong room but heard Cody's voice saying he'd already picked a room for himself and advised his father to choose another. Oscar invited Vanessa in, realizing she was tired and didn't want to disturb her. She went to the window and admired the night city view, which seemed magnificent. She remembered Mrs. Kenneth saying she'd share a room with Cody and realized she'd distorted the situation. But now she didn't care. She imagined how huge the numbers would be. Vanessa entered a small corridor and noticed only 3 rooms on the floor, for her, Cody, and Oscar. She felt a little embarrassed and suggested taking another room. Oscar wanted her to stay by his son's side and wouldn't accept refusal. Vanessa realized they'd share a bathroom, which embarrassed her more. Oscar grinned and told her to feel at home, hinting they'd stay long. Soon Vanessa put Cody to bed. He was curious how long they'd stay, but she didn't know. Cody asked about the fire alarm. Vanessa assured him it was fine and joked she could set fire to the curtains to check. She leaned closer and promised she wouldn't hesitate to do it for his sake. The boy thanked her for her care. She left him to sleep, wishing him good night. Leaving his room, Vanessa realized she hadn't showered yet. Preparing for a shower, she hoped the water sound wouldn't wake anyone. Under the hot stream, she stayed until sure the smoke smell was gone. Putting on a soft robe and combing her hair, Vanessa realized she could quickly get used to such luxury. She remembered it wouldn't last long but liked her current conditions. Mr. Paralan appeared. She thought he should be asleep. He noticed no one cared for her bruises. She objected when he showed her a first aid kit and said she had treated her wounds. Oscar insisted on bandaging them. It was the least he could do now. Amid the turmoil, Mr. Paralan didn't forget Vanessa had dragged his son from the fire. He apologized for being harsh. Vanessa said it was her duty, as was Oscar's. He was saddened realizing he couldn't protect his child. He recalled their pre-fire conversation, unsure what to do if she left. Vanessa assured him she would never leave Cody. She admitted someone once pulled her out of a burning house the same way. She was proud of that woman and now could do what she did for Cody because of her. After Oscar finished bandaging her legs, Vanessa thanked him. He was about to rest but remembered something. He took a small key from his pocket and handed it to her. She didn't understand what it was. Oscar explained it was the key to her room so she could lock herself for security. He admitted it was more pleasant for him to have her on the floor than Nick, who carried knives everywhere, even to the bathroom. Mr. Paralan left, bidding her good night. Alone, Vanessa tried to understand what she was getting into. Tired, she realized she needed to do something for Cody's safety. She decided to start by reviewing the hotel's CCTV cameras to identify vulnerabilities. Looking around, she noticed cameras covered almost all areas and a porter was at every entrance. The hardest part would be managing guests. It was harder to check them than staff. She also decided Cody shouldn't leave the room alone to keep him safe. Remembering something else, she wrote a letter to Barbara saying she had decided to stay and asked her to send a set of uniforms to the hotel. The next morning, Vanessa tried to call Cody out for breakfast, but he was embarrassed to leave like that. She promised to go shopping immediately after. Oscar appeared, thinking his son wasn't ready yet. Cody came out and asked his father to convince the nurse he couldn't appear in public in that state. Nick teased the boy, calling him a cute charmer. Oscar remarked that the hotel pajamas definitely wouldn't fit Cody, upsetting the boy. Because his father had a suit and he did not understand why he did not take one for him, but his father reminded his son that he had already grown up. Anyway, the boy agreed that it was better to wear it than to have no clothes at all, and the nurse promised him that they would make an urgent order from the tailor. Now Cody had only to wear cute shoes, which he did not like very much. While the boy was pulling on his shoes, Oscar, Nick, and Anna discussed the need to open new businesses. Nick still suggested focusing on what had happened recently, but Mr. Paralan thought Anna would deal with it perfectly. The babysitter was talking to Cody at the time, promising him they would go to any store he wanted right after eating. A few hours later, they were already returning with a few packages, and Cody was happy with his purchases. The boy immediately told his father that he now had a lot of new ties and several wonderful suits. Oscar thought they were back quickly, but his son convinced the salespeople that it was better to work with him. Vanessa came up and honestly admitted that they had spent twice as much as they had planned, and the boy, pleased that he now looked presentable, commanded that he wanted to go back to drawing class. Mr. Paralan was against it, thinking it was dangerous to go there, and asked his son not to return to the matter. Then the nanny suggested that the boy enroll in some other drawing class, but he wanted to see Clark. Oscar didn't know who Clark was, and Vanessa explained he was another boy in the class. Cody also believed his friend needed guidance and could not be allowed to make his way through the world alone. Then the nanny suggested they could invite this boy to them and said she could find contacts through the school. She reminded him they could have another day by the pool, which Cody really liked, but now he needed new swimming trunks as well. Mr. Paralan asked his son who his friend's parents were, and he said they worked as dentists. Oscar thought for a while and then agreed to receive his son's friend with his nanny but reminded Vanessa to keep an eye on her. The next day, Cody and his nanny were standing at the door waiting for Clark to arrive. He and his nanny arrived at the agreed time, and the boys were very happy to see each other. Clark's nanny, whose name was Allison, admitted her pupil missed his friend very much even after the incident in class. Clark himself had already approached Cody not empty-handed and gave him a new little duck because he heard that his house burned down. This seemed very cute to the son of the mafioso, as the hotel did not express a desire to provide him with such a bath toy. Vanessa suggested the boys change in their room and then go up to the roof to the pool. Soon Cody was showing his friend the way, and he was admiring everything, not only him but also his nanny, who had never been to the penthouse. As Vanessa was getting ready to settle down, she suddenly heard a familiar voice calling out to her. Turning around, she saw Nick sunbathing and immediately asked what he was doing there. He gave her one attempt to guess and then added that today was the day by the pool, and he did not want to miss such an opportunity. Nick admitted that the boss was working with Anna today, and his talents were not in demand. Vanessa remarked that his talents were indeed not sophisticated, but Nick did not find it funny. He added that he would only scare everyone, so he allowed Anna to collect information. At first, Vanessa thought this man was talking about the fire that had occurred in the Paralan house, but Nick was in no hurry to answer and calmly sipped his chilled drink. However, the nurse did not take her eyes off him, and then he hinted that she herself had guessed correctly. Nick also suggested this business could be done by one of his people or rather someone from the family, but after a couple of seconds, he added it could even be someone from the staff. Hearing that the arsonist could be a person from the staff, the nanny thought about what had happened to her family in the same way. Now Vanessa was even more convinced that the same man from Paralan was responsible for both events. At that moment, the girl realized she was one step closer to solving the puzzle, but at the same time, sad memories flooded back to her. She was distracted from her thoughts by Allison, who asked permission to take her room key. Clark's nanny explained the reason for this request. There was a queue for the bathroom, and she really needed it. Vanessa agreed. Then the boys called her to join their fun game, and she decided not to refuse them. Allison walked over to Vanessa's bag and pulled out the key. Looking around a bit as if she was going to steal something, her behavior seemed a little strange to Nick, although he heard Vanessa allow her to take the key. Meanwhile, the girl continued splashing with the kids in the pool, playing one game or another, and Cody suggested Vanessa be a shark. Vanessa said she was already a shark and suggested Allison be that fish. The nurse looked around and noticed Allison had been gone for quite some time, which was alarming. Vanessa decided to check it out and asked the boys to continue playing without her for now. She also asked Nick to look after the kids and for the key to the room. Vanessa had a strange obsessive feeling, and Nick noticed something was wrong too. Nick dialed Mrs. Kenneth's number so she could go up to the roof and replace him. He told Vanessa to go, and he would join as soon as Mrs. Kenneth appeared. He gave the girl his key. Vanessa rushed up the stairs, hoping she was wrong about Allison. Quietly opening the door to the room, Vanessa began to look through a thin crack at what was happening. At first, she didn't see Allison anywhere and realized she was probably in one of the rooms, most likely Cody's. Vanessa decided to start with this room, took the key to the door from her hiding place, then opened the door wide. Vanessa declared that the bathroom was not in this room. Allison was very afraid she had been caught and began to come up with excuses that she was just lost. The nanny did not listen and immediately pushed the suspect aside, then locked the door so she could not escape. This frightened Clark's nanny very much. After that, Vanessa asked her why she had come here and took the bag from her. Allison was even more frightened, realizing now the owner of the room could expose her. As she shook the contents out of her bag, Vanessa saw several items including wire cutters and a screwdriver. She also found a listening device, a primitive build, which Allison had not yet installed. The mafioso nanny began to interrogate the detainee about how many more bugs she had already managed to install, but Allison did not confess. Vanessa then used her skills and immediately began to look around the room with a trained eye. The first thing she noticed was that the alarm clock was no longer in its place but moved a little. She also noticed an additional light flashing in the smoke detector, which should not be there. After examining the walls, Vanessa found a decoy socket, another wiretapping device. Having collected all the devices in a pile, Vanessa could not understand what kind of monster would put bugs in a child's room. Then she heard a knock on the door and immediately called Nick, who hurried to open it. Seeing the bugs, Nick decided to take the detainee to Oscar's room before she did something else. Allison swore she didn't know anything, but Nick didn't believe her and assumed the boy Clark might be involved too. Clark's nanny immediately yelled that they should not touch him because she should not have lost sight of him at all. While Nick was taking Allison away, she continued to claim that the devices were not hers and that she knew nothing about them. Vanessa returned to the pool and offered the boys an ice cream treat, not giving any impression that something had happened in the room. They were so happy with the treat that they did not ask where Allison had gone or where Vanessa was. Mrs. Kenneth approached the nurse and asked if everything was all right. Vanessa reported that Nick would take care of everything a little later. Returning to the room, Clark asked Cody's permission to visit him again. He did not mind. Then they met Mr. Paralan, who was glad his son had a fun day. Nick shared with the nanny that Allison had confessed everything but did not know who they were or why she had been instructed to install the bugs. When Vanessa asked who had assigned her the task, she learned that the clerk was Clark's mother. Then a driver came up to Oscar and informed him that he had some important guests. Cody's father realized it was his friend's mother. When Clark saw his mother, he could not understand what she was doing there, but she had come to correct some mistake. Mr. Paralan immediately recognized the woman, and before he could think further, he realized Clark was her son. Vanessa asked Nick who Madame Colt was and found out she was the head of the French mafia. Oscar couldn't believe his son had said Clark's parents were dentists, but Madame Colt explained that her husband was a dentist. Nick whispered to the nanny that this explained how the mafia had been able to take over the prescription drug market. Mr. Paralan, though happy to greet Madame Colt, still had one unresolved question. By this, he referred to her actions toward the Paralan family and showed her a bound Allison. At the same time, Oscar made it clear he was not going to demand an apology and hinted that Madame Colt would have to pay for this in another way. He also made it clear he could do as he saw fit with Allison if Madame Colt did not make amends. Madame Colt said there were enough nannies at every step and saw no value in this worker, so Oscar could keep her. While Allison, frightened to death, begged her mistress for mercy, Oscar said they were not in the market to bargain. Madame Colt admitted that Mr. Paralan had caught her but said she knew it before his men destroyed her wiretap. She added that the Paralan family had invited her son to their place, and she only took advantage of the moment. She then threatened Oscar, saying this was her city, and if he forgot that, the fire would be the least of his problems. After that, Madame Colt grabbed her son's hand and dragged him home. Clark barely had time to say goodbye to his friend before leaving with his mother. Oscar began to interrogate Cody about what he took away from all this. Cody admitted he did not like Clark now. Mr. Paralan was glad his son understood something and sent him to change for dinner. There was still an issue to resolve with Allison. Nick suggested throwing her into the sea, and Adam was going to check the number for wiretapping again. Oscar then turned to Vanessa and stated she should have protected Cody and not introduced him to other mobsters. The girl stammered because she had no idea who Clark's mother really was. However, she admitted she should have vetted Clark's family before inviting him. Mr. Paralan smiled and said he was just teasing her, which shocked her a little. He also noticed Vanessa had caught Allison well and that she was no match for his son's nanny. Deciding that was all, the girl asked to go get ready for dinner, but Oscar was going to go with them.